Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked through the massive halls of the Galactic Council building. The walls were made of crystal that sparkled in the artificial light. Every step echoed in the huge space that could hold thousands of beings from across the galaxy. But Elena felt very small in this place. She found her seat in the human section. It was tiny compared to the other areas. The Korthax had an entire wing with hundreds of seats. The Zilani had another huge section with golden chairs. The Vorth Empire took up 3 levels of the chamber. Humans got 12 seats in a corner. Elena sat down and looked at her notes. Today, the council would vote on new taxes. This would be the 15th time in 50 years that newer species had to pay more. Humans were still called a newer species, even though they had been in the council for 200 years. The Korthax ambassador stood up. He was 7 feet tall with gray skin and 4 arms. His voice was loud and deep. The council must understand that resource management requires sacrifice from all members. Some species must give more so that galactic peace continues. Elena knew what this meant. Humans would pay more while getting less. It always worked this way. The Zilani representative spoke next. She had blue skin and large black eyes. The emotional stability of newer species makes them poor choices for important decisions. They must be guided by wiser, older species. Elena wanted to laugh. Humans had stopped 3 wars in the past decade with their emotional diplomacy, but the council records never mentioned that. The vote began. Red lights appeared on the voting board. Each red light meant yes to higher taxes. Green lights meant no. Elena watched as red lights filled the board. 847 red lights. Only 3 green lights appeared. Humans and 2 other small species voted against it. The Korthax ambassador smiled. Motion passed. The Terran colonies in the Kepler system will provide additional resources for galactic defense. Elena's heart sank. The Kepler system had 4 human worlds with millions of people. Now the aliens would take whatever they wanted from those worlds. They called it resource management, but Elena knew it was theft. After the vote, Elena returned to her small office. The walls were covered with files and reports. Each one told the same story. Humans worked hard, followed the rules, and got nothing in return. She opened a file marked Colony Seizures. 17 human worlds had been taken by alien species in the past century. The aliens always had good reasons: strategic importance, or resource requirements, or defensive positions. The humans living on those worlds were moved to smaller, worse planets. Many families were broken apart. Elena picked up another file. Research confiscation. This one made her angry every time she read it. Human scientists made amazing discoveries. Then the council declared the research too dangerous for humans to control. The aliens took the research and used it themselves. They never said thank you. The worst file was labeled Cultural Integration. Elena's hands shook when she opened it. This file was about human children. On worlds controlled by aliens, human kids were taken from their families. The aliens said they needed proper education to become good galactic citizens. Elena knew what this really meant. They wanted to make human children forget they were human. She sat down and began writing her daily report to Earth. Every day she sent the same message. The aliens were taking more from humanity. They were treating humans like servants or pets. Something needed to change. Her computer beeped. A message from Earth appeared on the screen. Elena read it quickly, then read it again. The message was always the same. Continue diplomatic approach. Avoid conflict at all costs. Maintain peaceful relations with all council species. Do not respond to provocations. Elena stared at the message. Earth wanted peace. The human government believed that patience would eventually earn respect from the aliens. They thought that if humans worked hard and followed the rules, the aliens would accept them as equals. Elena was not sure this would ever happen. She walked to her window and looked out at the space around the station. Ships from hundreds of species moved in organized patterns. Trade ships carried goods between worlds. Military vessels patrolled the borders. Communication arrays sent messages across the galaxy. Most people did not know that humans had built much of this technology. When humans joined the Council, they shared their knowledge freely. Human engineers designed better engines. Human doctors created new medicines. Human scientists solved problems that had puzzled aliens for centuries. But humans got no credit for this work. The aliens took the technology and claimed it as their own. They said humans were too primitive to understand such advanced concepts. They said humans had just gotten lucky with a few discoveries. Elena knew better. She had read the real reports. Human technology was keeping galactic civilization running. But the aliens would never admit this. They needed to believe they were superior to the emotional and primitive humans. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. A young human aide entered with more files. "Ambassador, these just arrived from the Kepler colonies," the aide said. Her name was Sarah, and she looked worried. "The Korthax are demanding complete control of the mining operations. They want all human workers to leave within 6 months." Elena took the files and read quickly. The Korthax were not just taking resources now. They were taking entire colonies. Millions of humans would have to find new homes. Again. "What should we tell the colonists?" Sarah asked. Elena looked at the message from Earth still glowing on her screen. "Continue diplomatic approach. Avoid conflict. Maintain peace." "Tell them to prepare for relocation," Elena said quietly. "Tell them Earth is negotiating for better terms." Sarah nodded and left. Elena knew she was lying. Earth was not negotiating. Earth was accepting whatever the aliens demanded. Earth believed that patience and goodness would eventually win respect. Elena was beginning to think Earth was wrong. She closed the files and looked out the window again. Somewhere out there, human children were being raised by aliens who taught them to be ashamed of being human. Somewhere out there, human families were being forced from their homes. Somewhere out there, human discoveries were making alien lives better, while humans got nothing in return. How long could this continue? How much could one species endure? Elena did not know the answer, but she was starting to think that humanity's patience was not infinite. Someday, something would have to give. She just hoped she would not be around to see what happened when humanity's tolerance finally snapped. 3 months passed like a bad dream. Elena watched the council make decision after decision that hurt humanity. Each vote was the same. The aliens voted together while humans sat alone in their corner. Then came the emergency session that changed everything. The council chamber was more crowded than usual. Representatives from every species filled the seats. The air buzzed with excitement. Elena could tell something big was about to happen. The Zalani science minister stood at the center podium. Her blue skin gleamed under the bright lights. She held a data tablet that glowed with information. "Fellow council members," she began, "we gather today to celebrate a great victory over disease and suffering." Elena felt a cold fear in her stomach. She knew this tone. The aliens always sounded happy when they were about to take something from humans. "The terrible Zalani wasting disease has plagued our people for 1,000 years, the science minister continued. "Millions of Zalani have died slow, painful deaths. Our best scientists could find no cure." The chamber was silent. Every being listened carefully. "But now we have hope. A human doctor named Sarah Chen has discovered a cure. Her medicine can save every Zalani suffering from this disease." Elena sat up straight. Dr. Chen was a brilliant human scientist. Elena had read reports about her work. Dr. Chen had spent 10 years studying the Zalani disease. She had used human volunteers for testing. 300 humans had died during the dangerous experiments to create this cure. However, the science minister said, and Elena's fear grew stronger. This cure is too important to belong to just one species. Medical knowledge must serve all beings in the galaxy. Elena knew what was coming next. The Council hereby declares Dr. Chen's research to be galactic heritage. This cure will be shared freely with all Council species. No single species may claim ownership of such important medical knowledge. The chamber erupted in cheers. Aliens clapped and made happy noises in dozens of different languages. Elena sat frozen in her chair. Dr. Chen had spent her life creating this cure. Hundreds of humans had died to make it possible. Now the aliens would take it and give nothing in return. Elena stood up and pressed the button to request speaking time. Her light appeared on the board, but nothing happened. She pressed the button again. The Korthax speaker noticed her signal. He laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "The human representative wishes to speak. How amusing." More laughter filled the chamber. Elena felt her face burn with anger and shame. "Honored speaker," Elena said, "humanity requests recognition of intellectual property rights in this matter." The laughter grew louder. The Korthax speaker held up one of his 4 hands for silence. "Property rights are for established species, human. Your primitive people should feel honored that your betters find your accidental discoveries useful." Elena wanted to scream. Accidental discoveries? Hundreds of humans had died to create this cure. Dr. Chen was one of the smartest scientists in the galaxy, but Elena forced herself to stay calm. Dr. Chen's research followed all proper protocols. Human volunteers made great sacrifices. "Enough," the speaker said. The sound system cut off Elena's microphone. The Council has no time for emotional outbursts from junior species. Elena tried to speak anyway, but no one could hear her. She was invisible, powerless. The Zalani science minister smiled. "We thank the humans for their contribution to galactic science. Now we move to our next important matter." A new speaker took the podium. This was the Vorth Empire's war minister. He was a massive creature with thick armor and glowing red eyes. "The galaxy faces new threats," he announced. "Dangerous aliens from outside our space are testing our defenses. We must prepare for war." Elena's blood went cold. She knew where this was going. All Council species must contribute military forces according to their capabilities. Service in the Galactic Defense Force is now mandatory for all adult beings. The War Minister's eyes seemed to look directly at Elena. "Humanity will contribute 40% of their adult population to military service. They will serve under proper command, learning proper tactics from experienced species." Elena's mind reeled. 40%. That meant taking almost half of all adult humans away from their families, their jobs, their lives. They would become soldiers in an alien army, following alien orders, probably dying in alien wars. Elena stood up again, but her microphone was still dead. She tried to shout, but her voice was lost in the huge chamber. The votes came quickly. The medical decision passed 1,247 to 1. Only humans voted against it. Even species that Elena thought were friendly abandoned humanity when faced with the hegemony powers. The military conscription passed by an even larger margin. Elena watched green lights appear on the board as species competed to show their loyalty to the hegemony. No one wanted to be seen supporting the humans, but the worst was yet to come. A new Zalani representative took the podium. This one was younger, with bright purple markings around her eyes. "The Council recognizes a growing problem," she began sweetly. "Human children on integrated worlds are developing concerning attitudes. They show excessive loyalty to their birth species. This creates social problems." Elena's hands gripped the armrests of her chair so hard her knuckles turned white. "To solve this problem, the Council approves the Cultural Preservation Initiative. Human children in Council-controlled territories will be raised in proper galactic society. They will learn to see themselves as galactic citizens first, not as members of a single species. The meaning was clear. Alien governments would take human children away from their parents. These children would be raised by aliens, taught to think like aliens, to be ashamed of being human. Elena tried to stand, but her legs would not work. The room seemed to spin around her. They were taking the children. The aliens were going to steal human children and turn them into something else. The vote was quick. 1-247 to 1. Elena was the only being in the entire galaxy who voted to let human parents keep their own children. After the session ended, Elena stumbled back to her quarters. Her hands shook as she tried to type a message to Earth. How could she explain this? How could she tell Earth that the aliens had just declared war on human families? She typed slowly, using the secret code that Earth had taught her for emergencies. The children. They're taking the children. Elena sent the message and sat in her dark room. Outside her window, alien ships moved in perfect formations. The galaxy continued as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Today, the aliens had shown their true feelings about humanity. Humans were not partners or allies or even useful servants. Humans were nothing. They existed only to give the aliens whatever they wanted. Elena thought about Dr. Chen, who had dedicated her life to saving alien lives. She thought about the human volunteers who had died testing the cure. She thought about human parents watching their children disappear into alien schools. How much more could humanity endure? How much patience was too much? Elena did not know, but she had a feeling she was about to find out. Elena waited 2 weeks for a response from Earth. 2 weeks of watching alien ships celebrate their latest victory over humanity. 2 weeks of reading reports about human families being torn apart. 2 weeks of silence from home. When the response finally came, it was not what she expected. The message was short and simple. New representative arriving soon. Prepare for transition. Elena stared at the words. Earth was replacing her. After 15 years of service, they were sending someone new. She felt confused and a little hurt. Had she done something wrong? 3 days later, her replacement arrived. Elena watched through her office window as a human military shuttle landed in the diplomatic bay. She had expected another diplomat, maybe someone younger with fresh ideas. Instead, Admiral Marcus Thorne walked off the shuttle. Elena knew that name. Every human knew that name. Admiral Thorne had fought in the border wars 20 years ago. He had saved the colony of New Terra from alien raiders. His tactics were studied in military schools across human space. But he had also been involved in some very dark operations that were never fully explained. Admiral Thorne was not a diplomat. He was a soldier. When he entered Elena's office, she was struck by how different he looked from the politicians she was used to. He was tall and lean, with gray hair and cold blue eyes. His uniform was simple black with no decoration except for his rank symbols. Ambassador Vasquez, he said, shaking her hand. His grip was strong and brief. Thank you for your service. I know this has not been easy. Admiral, Elena replied, still confused. I wasn't expecting military representation. Has something changed? Admiral Thorne sat down across from her desk. He looked directly into her eyes when he spoke. Yes, something has changed. Earth has decided that traditional diplomacy is no longer appropriate for our situation. Elena felt a chill. What does that mean? It means we're implementing the Terran withdrawal protocol. Elena had never heard that phrase before. Withdrawal to where? We're members of the Council. Our colonies are scattered across Council space. Where would we withdraw to? Admiral Thorne's smile was cold and sharp. We're not withdrawing from the galaxy, Ambassador. We're withdrawing from civilization. Elena did not understand, but something in the Admiral's voice told her not to ask more questions. Not yet. The next day, Admiral Thorne took his place in the council chambers. The alien representatives seemed amused by the change. A human soldier instead of a human diplomat? How primitive. The Korthak speaker made jokes about human military posturing. The Zalani representatives whispered among themselves about emotional species trying to appear threatening. The Vorth Empire's delegate laughed openly. Admiral Thorne sat quietly through all of this. He did not react to the insults or the laughter. He simply listened and took notes. During the session, strange reports began coming in from across the galaxy. Ships arriving at human colonies found them empty, not destroyed, not attacked, just empty. The colonists were gone, but all their buildings and equipment remained. On New Geneva, a trade delegation found breakfast still warm on tables but no humans anywhere. On Kepler 4, alien tax collectors arrived to find a completely functioning city with no people in it. The lights were on, the computers were running, but every human had vanished. The Zalani Science Council was puzzled. Their sensors showed human ships in those systems one day and nothing the next. No signs of faster-than-light travel, no signs of destruction. The humans had simply disappeared. Admiral Thorne listened to these reports without expression. When asked if he knew what was happening to human colonies, he gave a simple answer. Humans are exercising their right to relocate. But the disappearances were not random. Elena began to notice a pattern. The humans who vanished were always the most important ones. The best engineers, the top scientists, the most skilled workers. And they were taking their knowledge with them. The aliens did not seem worried. They thought humans were just being emotional again, running away instead of facing their responsibilities. The hegemony species were actually pleased. Fewer humans meant less trouble. But other things were starting to go wrong. Small problems at first. Communication delays between distant systems. Minor glitches in space station computers. Trade route calculations that did not quite work right. Nothing serious. Nothing that could not be fixed. Except the problems kept getting worse. Elena noticed that the aliens were calling more repair technicians than usual. Systems that had worked perfectly for decades were breaking down. The fixes never seemed to last very long. Then she realized something frightening. Most of those systems had been built by humans. 3 weeks after Admiral Thorne arrived, Elena got permission to access the technical records. What she found made her hands shake. Humans had not just contributed to galactic technology, they had become essential to it. Human engineers maintained the life support systems on space stations. Human programmers wrote the software that controlled trade routes. Human scientists calibrated the medical equipment in alien hospitals. And now those humans were disappearing. Elena tried to bring this to Admiral Thorne's attention, but he already knew. When she showed him the technical reports, he nodded calmly. Admiral, she said, if this continues, major systems across the galaxy will start failing. The aliens depend on human knowledge more than they realize. Yes, he replied simply. We need to warn them. We need to explain that they need human technical support. Admiral Thorne looked at her with those cold blue eyes. Do we? Elena felt a chill run down her spine. You planned this. The disappearances, the technical problems, this is all part of the withdrawal protocol. The aliens have made their position clear, Admiral Thorne said quietly. They believe humans exist to serve them. They take our discoveries, our children, our freedom. They give nothing in return except contempt. But people will die if these systems fail, Elena protested. Yes, Admiral Thorne agreed. People will die. The question is, which people? Elena stared at him. This was not the diplomatic solution she had hoped for. This was something much darker. The next day in council session, Admiral Thorne made his first official statement. He stood at the human podium and spoke in a clear, calm voice. The Galactic Council is hereby informed that as of this moment, humanity formally withdraws all technological support for Council infrastructure. The chamber fell silent. Elena could hear her own heartbeat. Furthermore, Admiral Thorne continued, all human technical personnel are recalled from Council facilities effective immediately. The Korthak's speaker laughed. You cannot recall them, human. They are contracted to work for their betters. Admiral Thorne checked a device on his wrist and nodded to himself. No, they are not. At that moment, every light in the council chambers flickered and went out. The lights came back on after 10 seconds, but something had changed. Elena could see fear in the alien faces around the chamber. The Korthak speaker was no longer laughing. The Zalani representatives looked confused and worried. Admiral Thorne stood calmly at his podium as if nothing had happened. But Elena knew this had been a demonstration. A warning. The humans could turn off the lights anytime they wanted. The Vorth Empire's war minister stood up angrily. This is unacceptable. You cannot threaten council facilities. I made no threats, Admiral Thorne replied. I simply informed you that human technical support is ending. What you just experienced was the first minor system adjustment. System adjustment? The Zalani science minister asked nervously. Human engineers designed most of the technology in this station. When they built it, they included certain safeguards. Today, those safeguards were activated. Elena felt sick to her stomach. Human engineers had built backdoors into the systems they created. They could control or destroy their own technology whenever they wanted. The session ended in chaos. Alien representatives rushed to contact their home governments. Emergency technical teams were called to check all critical systems. But Elena knew it was too late. The collapse began slowly, then accelerated beyond anyone's ability to stop it. Within hours, communication arrays across the galaxy started failing. The quantum entanglement networks that allowed instant messaging between star systems went silent one by one. Species that had talked to each other every day for centuries suddenly could not make contact. The Korthak's empire tried to send messages to their military fleets. The messages never arrived. Their ships were scattered across hundreds of worlds with no way to coordinate their actions. The Zalani medical facilities found their equipment shutting down without warning. Machines that had saved millions of lives suddenly stopped working. Hospital computers displayed error messages that no one could understand because they were written in human programming languages. Space stations throughout the galaxy began experiencing life support failures. Not complete failures. The humans were not trying to kill everyone immediately. But air recycling systems worked poorly. Water purification systems produced strange tastes. Gravity generators created uneven fields that made walking difficult. The aliens tried desperately to fix the problems themselves. They discovered they understood much less about their own technology than they had believed. The Korthaks had demanded access to human engine designs decades ago. Now their warships could barely maintain orbit. The engines worked, but the computer systems that controlled them were failing in ways that seemed almost intelligent. Ships would lose power just as they entered dangerous areas of space. The Zalani had taken human medical research and declared it galactic property. Now their hospitals could not treat the simplest diseases. The medical scanners would not start. The drug synthesizers produced random chemicals instead of medicine. Even basic surgical tools stopped functioning properly. The Vorth Empire had built their trade networks using human navigation systems. Now their cargo ships were lost in space, unable to calculate safe routes between stars. Several ships had already crashed into planets or disappeared into dangerous nebulas. Panic spread across the galaxy as each species realized how dependent they had become on human technology. They had treated humans as primitive servants, but humans had quietly become the foundation of galactic civilization. Emergency council sessions were called, but the council building itself was falling apart. The environmental systems could not maintain proper atmosphere. The translation computers had stopped working, so different species could not understand each other. The gravity generators made everyone feel sick. Admiral Thorne attended these sessions with perfect calm. When angry aliens demanded that he fix their technology, he gave the same simple answer. Human technical support has been withdrawn. The Korthak speaker tried to threaten military action. Our fleets will force your people to repair what they have broken. Your fleets? Admiral Thorne asked politely. I believe you will find them somewhat difficult to contact at the moment. The speaker tried to use his communication device. It was dead. Every communication system in the building had failed. 3 weeks into the crisis, the Vorth Empire sent their grand fleet to human space. They would capture human worlds and force the humans to fix everything. The fleet arrived at Earth's solar system, expecting to find a desperate, helpless species ready to surrender. Instead, they found empty space. Earth was gone. Not destroyed, gone. The star was still there. The other planets were still in orbit, but Earth had vanished completely. Solar monitoring stations detected no energy signatures, no debris, no sign that a planet had ever existed in that location. The fleet searched every human world they could find. All empty. Not abandoned, carefully emptied. Buildings stood intact, power systems ran normally, but there were no humans anywhere. Automated messages played on every human world. The children. Remember the children. The alien fleet commanders did not understand what this meant, but Elena did. The aliens had threatened to take human children away from their parents. This was humanity's response. As weeks turned to months, galactic civilization continued to collapse. Advanced species found themselves reduced to primitive technology levels. The Korthak's warriors, once masters of space combat, could not make their weapons work properly. The Zalani scientists could not use their research equipment. The Vorth traders were stranded on their home worlds. Some species tried to reverse engineer human technology, but it was incredibly complex. Human systems used quantum programming techniques that took decades to learn. The physical components were designed with materials science that other species had not mastered. Worse, the human technology seemed to be actively resisting alien attempts to control it. Computers would delete their own programs when non-humans tried to access them. Machines would break down moments after alien technicians touched them. The most terrible realization came slowly. The humans had not just built the technology. They had designed it to be dependent on continued human maintenance. Without human oversight, nothing would work for very long. Elena watched it all from the dying council station. She had chosen to stay behind when the other humans disappeared. Someone needed to witness what happened when humanity's patience finally ended. Admiral Thorne visited her one last time before he too vanished. You could come with us, he offered. There's still time. Where would I go? Elena asked. Where did all the humans go? Admiral Thorne smiled, but it was a sad smile. Somewhere the children will be safe. Somewhere they can grow up as humans instead of aliens' pets. The galaxy is dying, Elena said. Billions of people are suffering because their technology doesn't work. Yes, Admiral Thorne agreed. That's what happens when you bite the hand that feeds you. Elena understood then. Humanity had not just withdrawn from galactic society. They had removed themselves from it completely, taking their knowledge with them. The aliens were learning what the galaxy looked like without human support. It was a cold, dark, broken place. Elena remained alone on the station as the last systems failed around her. She had a small human shuttle hidden in the docking bay. When the life support finally stopped working, she would leave too. But first, she wanted to see the end of the galactic civilization that had called humans primitive and worthless. It was ending not with war or revolution, but with silence and darkness. The humans had left the galaxy to its fate. 5 years had passed since the day the galaxy went dark. Elena stood on the observation deck of a small trading station in the Outer Rim. Through the thick windows, she could see the wreckage of what had once been the greatest civilization in galactic history. The Korthax Empire had collapsed into dozens of warring tribes. Without their advanced weapons and communication systems, their mighty fleets had become scrap metal floating in space. The proud warriors now fought with crude weapons over the ruins of their former glory. The Zalani Confederation had split apart when their worlds could no longer talk to each other. Each planet became isolated, struggling with diseases they could no longer cure. Their brilliant scientists worked with tools that belonged in museums, trying to rediscover knowledge they had taken for granted. The Vorth Empire no longer existed at all. Their trade networks had been the foundation of their power, and when those networks died, their entire society collapsed. The once mighty merchant princes now lived in primitive settlements, unable to travel between the stars. Elena had watched it all happen. She had seen the last council session held in emergency candlelight, because the power systems had finally failed completely. She had watched alien representatives weep as they realized their civilizations were dying. Most aliens had returned to their home worlds when space travel became too dangerous. The few who remained in the outer systems lived simple lives, using whatever technology still functioned. They had learned to fix basic machines and grow their own food. Some had adapted well. The smaller species that had never depended on advanced technology continued much as they always had. They actually seemed happier without the hegemony powers controlling their lives. But the three great empires were gone forever. Elena was the last official representative of humanity in the galaxy. She had stayed to watch and to remember. Someone needed to witness what happened when tolerance finally reached its breaking point. Today was different, though. Today, she had received a message. The message appeared on her simple communication device with no indication of where it came from. No ship signatures, no transmission records. It simply appeared as if the universe itself had spoken. Ambassador Vasquez, please report to Docking Bay 7. Elena had not heard her title used in years. She was no longer an ambassador to anything. The council was dead, the empires were ruins, and humanity was gone. But she walked to Docking Bay 7 anyway. A small ship was waiting for her. It looked human, but Elena had never seen that design before. The metal seemed to shift and flow like liquid. The engines made no sound. Admiral Thorne stepped out of the ship. He looked exactly the same as he had 5 years ago. Not a day older, not a line added to his face. "Admiral," Elena said quietly, "I wondered if I would ever see you again." "Hello, Elena. Thank you for staying. Thank you for watching. Where have you been? Where did humanity go?" Admiral Thorne gestured for her to board the ship. "I'll show you." The ship launched without Elena feeling any movement. One moment they were in the docking bay, the next they were moving through space faster than should be possible. "We never left the galaxy," Admiral Thorne explained, as strange stars flowed past the windows. "We just stepped outside normal space-time." "I don't understand." "Human scientists made a discovery about 50 years ago. We learned how to create pocket dimensions, small universes that exist alongside this one, but separate from it. We kept this discovery secret while we built new homes for our people." Elena stared as the ship entered what looked like a tear in reality itself. On the other side was something impossible. Earth hung in space, green and blue and perfect. But it was not alone. Hundreds of worlds surrounded it, all connected by streams of light that pulsed with energy. Cities floated in the void between planets. Ships moved in patterns too complex and beautiful to believe. "We saved everyone," Admiral Thorne said softly. Every human world, every piece of human culture and history. We brought it all here where it would be safe." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "It's beautiful. It's home. a home where human children will never be taken from their parents, where human discoveries will serve humanity first, where we can be what we choose to be instead of what others demand. The ship landed on Earth, and Elena stepped out to breathe air that smelled like flowers and rain. Cities rose in the distance, but they were unlike anything that had existed before. They seemed to grow from the ground like living things, beautiful and natural. "How many people live here?" Elena asked. "All of them. 12 billion humans across 300 worlds, all connected, all free." Elena was amazed, but she was also confused. "Admiral, the technology to create this, it's beyond anything humans had when I left. How did this happen so quickly?" Admiral Thorne smiled, and for the first time, Elena saw warmth in his cold eyes. "Elena, we didn't develop this in the last 5 years. We've been working on this for decades, ever since the first time the aliens took one of our colonies. You planned this from the beginning?" "We planned for the possibility. We hoped it would never be necessary. But when they threatened our children..." His voice grew cold again. "That was the line we would not let them cross." Elena understood. Humanity's patience had not been weakness. It had been preparation time. While the aliens thought humans were helpless servants, humans were quietly building an escape route for their entire species. "But you're not completely gone," Elena said. "I've heard stories. Medical supplies appearing on worlds where children are sick. Technology gifts for species that were kind to humans. Is that true?" Admiral Thorne nodded. "We don't hate all aliens, Elena. Just the ones who hurt us. The species that were good to humanity, that protected human families or stood against the hegemony powers, we remember them too. And the others? We let them learn what the galaxy looks like without us." Elena spent 3 days on Earth, meeting with old friends and seeing the new world humanity had built. It was amazing beyond words, but she knew she could not stay. "I want to go back," she told Admiral Thorne. "Why?" "There's nothing left out there but ruins and suffering. There are good people still alive in the galaxy. People who are trying to rebuild, trying to do better than the empires that fell. They need to know that humanity is not completely gone. They need hope." Admiral Thorne was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Very well. But you won't go back alone." Elena returned to the outer rim with a small ship and a simple mission. She would help the species that were trying to build something better than what had come before. She would give medical aid to worlds where children were dying. She would share just enough technology to help good people survive. But she would also carry a message to anyone who would listen. The message was simple. Humanity remembered everything. Every kindness and every cruelty. Every species that had helped and every species that had hurt them. Those who had been kind would find mysterious aid in their darkest hours. Food would appear when children were hungry. Medicine would arrive when plagues struck. Technology would be gifted to help them build better lives. But those who had chosen cruelty would find only empty space where humans once stood. They would receive nothing but the consequences of their own actions. Elena became a legend in the broken galaxy. The humans called her the last ambassador. The aliens called her the memory keeper. Children on distant worlds whispered stories about the woman who carried humanity's judgment. And sometimes, on quiet nights when the stars seemed especially bright, Elena would receive a message from home, a simple question. "How are the children?" Elena would look out at the galaxy where species were slowly learning to treat each other with kindness instead of cruelty. Where former enemies worked together to survive, where the strong protected the weak instead of exploiting them. And she would send back a simple answer. "The children are learning." The galaxy had not ended when humanity's tolerance snapped. It had been reborn. The species that survived and thrived were those that remembered the most important lesson. The universe was a big, dangerous place. It was better to have friends than enemies. And the most dangerous enemy was the friend you took for granted, until the day they decided they had had enough. Humanity was still out there, somewhere beyond normal space and time. They were watching, they were judging, and they were waiting to see if the galaxy had learned anything from the darkness that followed when they left. Some species would never get a second chance. But for those who proved they could be better, humanity's gifts would continue to arrive. The children of all species would be protected, and humanity would never again be taken for granted. The galaxy remembered the day humanity's tolerance snapped, because it was the day everything changed forever.